So, as we're waiting for questions, the holidays are always an opportunity for wounds to be bumped. Um, and they also can be triggering for other reasons too. So hopefully all of us are doing good at self-care and reaching out to the people that we know love us, even when the people that we think should love us maybe are having a hard time doing that, so that we can get some support because uh, this can be a really depressing time for a lot of people. Um, Supposed to be the time of light and cheeriness and warmth, but for a lot of people, it's also a very strong time of loneliness and sadness and depression. So hopefully all of you can do some things. What are some of your favorite ways of self-care, Tammy?
Well, so so I was my father passed away on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, he
And
did.
yeah, so and
So
it's a
sorry to hear
blessing on the but as you're talking about it, yeah, it's supposed to be a season of cheery and light. And I'm like, but I have found your tools unfortunately I've had to lean into more.
that.
So unfortunately I have them. I guess that's the other side of it. But like this is a challenging time, and we're all coming from lots of different areas, and like communications are abrupt. And so like what I really noticed with the situation was abandonment wound, poke, and the whole being feeling dismissed, and I mean, and it's complicated and it doesn't really matter. But what I went was, this is not how I want to feel. And so the person that I was getting misaligned with, I picked up the phone and I was like, wow, that is such a, because I could have just kept going and told everybody. I mean, I could have just done all the destructive and hurtful things. And I chose to pick up the phone, and this person was like, I mean, like she also knew things were going sideways, but like neither of us had any way via text to unravel it. So, and I said, this is, I have a massive abandonment wound. This is poking this, and this is why, and cleared things up. And now, now I can show up as an adult in this. But I also, like, when you talked about, what am I doing for self-care? There's a whole bunch of things this holiday season. Like, the trees are up with lights on it. That may be as good as it I just have to abandon some of
Right?
those. Like, I don't have to have the perfect Christmas, with I don't. Like, I have to go, what is going to be in my best interest, what is going to serve us? And that's what I'm going to do. So backing off my expectations
Mm.
is hugely, I will show up and do what I need to do and want to do, but there's a whole bunch of things that just aren't that important in the broad scheme of things compared to my sanity, so
Well, sanity is kind of important.
it's kind of important.
I'm so sad to hear about your father. I know that
Thank you.
that's been hard. So
It
just
is, but I am like, there's all those paradoxes, like of I know how blessed I am. Like I had a good dad, like not everybody has that.
oh, that's good.
So like that's the flip side of it, is like I have the ability to miss something that was real and meaningful to me, but I had a lot of decades, and I know, I love my dad and my dad loved me, and so I have that, to contrast with, with the loss. So, but loss is part of life too. So,
It is, unfortunately. That's the thing about, when we look at the yin and yang of pain and peace, like we all would love to just live in a world where there's just peace and joy and nobody gets sick and nobody dies and all those things. But that's not the reality. And so that's the key question that I've always been trying to find is, how do I find peace even though painful things are happening? And I think it's possible. And there's a difference between pain and suffering, I think. So
yes.
figuring out how to do that and leaning into that. Um, And these times of pain do hurt, but they also are an invitation to come closer. It's an invitation to look at the way we've been living our lives, and what priorities need to maybe be replaced and changed and all those things. So pain can be a beautiful teacher if we let it.
It is, and someone wrote, and thank you. I'm going to try to blink back tears. We're sorry for your
Oh,
loss, Tammy. It makes the holidays tougher. I lost my mom 5 years ago at Thanksgiving. I am sorry for you. It's always painful, but now when there's this holiday reminder too, it makes it extra challenging. Troy, we hope you had a good Thanksgiving. So,
okay, thank
but
you.
yeah, one of the things I'm the family recorder because, and Dr. Rob actually told me about this. He, when his mom died, his spouse scanned bunches of photos, and I was like, okay, like of all the stuff in the house, like if there's a fire or something, like I would miss the photos. So in 2016, I did like Dr. Rob said, I bought a scanner. I scanned thousands of photos. And so I have all these photos. So I'm in the process of making a slideshow to be shown, at visitation and stuff. But the flip side of it is I'm sending all these photos to everyone else too, going, oh, do you remember this? Remember this? So like it's always, like you said, there's pain and then there's suffering. And so there's the pain, but there's also the ability to, to have these, connections with other people, which if I was in my active addiction, there would be zero chance, for any of that. I couldn't show up for anything, in
No
any kind
doubt.
of adult way. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And it brings probably a lot of wonderful memories that come up. So that's beautiful.
Yes. And my dad was a character. So I've got him pulling funny faces like this isn't going to be these, nice, austere photos of him. Like everybody's going to get to see the real guy, which is, that's who he was. So it was good. So like I know you're doing a finding peace for professionals training. So for
Yeah.
those of you that are working with a qualified professional, please let them know that Troy's going to be doing a workshop just for them to help learn more, about that. We've got the men's finding peace work group for attachment wounds, or the work group starting again after the first of the year. It's on the Seeking Integrity site under the work group tab. So check that out as well. So, and then, Troy continues to provide alternating Thursdays for betrayed partners, but every Friday for the guys on our site on the sexandrelationshiphealing.com site as well. So lean into those. Anything here is free on the sex and relationship healing, low cost on the work groups for a live facilitated group. So there's a question. Thank you for submitting this. I'm worried I might be a pain addict. I can't find any pain addict support groups. I do a tremendous amount of deep trauma work. I seem to really look forward to going there. I wonder if I may be using that pain work to create dopamine as a substitution. Thoughts? That's an intriguing question. I've not ever heard anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
like I know cutters and things like that where you create pain, but it's also a release. So
Mhm.
what are your thoughts?
So hopefully you can add a little bit more clarity as I go along here, but thank you for your question. I'm wondering if, because you say I do a tremendous amount of deep trauma work, and I'm wondering if the relief that comes, there's a variety of different ways to do trauma work. One of my favorites is experiential therapy, or like psychodrama therapy. And so when we do that kind of thing, there is like a release and it feels so amazing afterwards, which is the dopamine, right? But other things too. And so I do know, like, there are people they call themselves retreat junkies. They love to go to things like that because they love how that feels. And so I'm wondering if it's actually the relief from the trauma that you find yourself addicted to, or if it is actually the pain that you're addicted to. So if you could maybe clarify a little bit of that if you could answer that as I keep going. You probably aren't going to find a whole lot of support groups for pain addiction. All addictions, no matter what the addiction is an attempt to numb pain. So all of those are people's ways of trying to deal with attachment wounds in one way or another. And so it's interesting, though, that you say that, because in the addiction, we can become very much, it's very strange. People think that we're addicted to the dopamine spike, and we are. That's part of what continues to drive us. But the next part after the dopamine spike is the shame dump. The feeling like I'm horrible, and people also are addicted to that. And that's a really interesting concept, because I've now just betrayed myself, abandoned myself, all those things when I acted out. My core belief deep down is that I'm a horrible person. And so it's weird. I engage in the behavior or the substance because it feels good, but it also reinforces that I'm a horrible person. So I need this behavior to continue to validate to myself that I'm a horrible person. And so people become, I don't know if addicted is the right word, but people become locked into that. And once they start to break apart, and that's why groups are so beautiful for some of this work, is that I'm not a horrible person. I've done maybe some horrible things. I've done some unhealthy things, but I am worthy of love and belonging. And when we start to crack that rock open a little bit and see that beautiful heart inside, and I start to connect with my worthiness, it makes it a whole lot easier for me to want to be sober. It makes it a whole lot easier for me to want to make healthier choices, because now I can push that thought of I'm a horrible person away. I'm a good person, and I want to take care of myself. But oftentimes in that addiction cycle, the part that we get to is that shame place. And that is part of it. And so I need the shame to perpetuate the addiction so I can continue to feel horrible about myself.
So to continue that, if I start doing recovery work and I start cracking that, I'm just making this up, but it feels like there could be like, oh, I need to relapse or continue to act out. Like, even if I start cracking that, I'm going to do that kind of to prove that I'm still that shameful, horrible person. Like, I could see that being an extra challenge to really be able to stop the problematic behavior,
Yeah.
and to kind of be in that spin.
Yeah, because the shame is what keeps us so locked in, right? From the what do we do when we engage in these addictive behaviors? We hide, we don't let anybody know, we deny, we minimize, we rationalize. Those are all shame-based behaviors. But why are we doing that? I've met some guys who look at porn and they don't have any shame about it. They're like, yeah, I look at it sometimes. And I'm like, what? Like, how do you not have any shame? And they just don't. And so they're able to be open about it. Now, they may say, yeah, it's not healthy, but they don't have shame about it. And so it's, they're not trapped in that cycle of, I need to keep beating myself up. And they actually can be more open, and they are actually able to walk away from it a whole lot easier, because they don't need the shame to continue to perpetuate the fact that they're horrible. And if they and a lot of guys who have been in that place and they recognize like some of the dark side of porn and sex trafficking and stuff, they're like, oh dude, I don't want to be any a part of that. And they can walk away easily because they don't have the shame. But the people who have the shame, it's so much harder, because they've used that for years and years to validate that I'm a horrible person.
So he did add, I'm 27 years clean and sober from drugs, alcohol, cutting, etc. I'm almost 6 months clean in SA. I was clean and sober, but not in recovery. I now know these addictions are symptoms of deeper problems. They're trauma-based addictions based in insecure attachment. I've done nonstop deep trauma work for close to 6 months, and I look forward to the deep work. I want to be clear with myself that I'm not using pain as a substitute.
So I love that you're clarifying that. And I'm hearing that you are doing a lot of work, and dude, trauma work can be really, really healing. But that can become its own addiction in and of itself. And so part of the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of it is connection, living, loving, laughing, joyfulness, those kind of things. So I love that you're doing that work, and I'm hoping that through all that, that you're also connecting with people. Trauma work, we all need to do it. And it sounds like it's been really fulfilling for you. And you're right. Trauma is at the root of all of our addictions. So just the fact that you're asking that question means that you're being mindful and you're not wanting to replace another behavior to cover up pain. So I would just encourage you to continue to be mindful and then continue to reach out and build connections with the people in your life that love you and care about you and you love them. And then I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, and I'm like, I love the work that you do with the Finding Peace. So like participating in that, and eh, I don't want to say experiencing, but experiencing the healing from the trauma as a group with peers, could be a really useful connection too. So, okay. The next question, as a betrayer, I've been guilty of people pleasing, being able to read a room and then trying to make things better if I sense unrest in the room. As a betrayer, I have an intimacy disorder and struggle with empathy. Can someone be an empath and have trouble being empathetic? What kinds of attachment wounds can create someone like that?
So yes, you can be an empath. What an empath means is that you pick up on the emotions of other people. You can feel what's going on in the room. But empathy is a behavior. So empathy is a skill. So it's not a natural thing that happens. And if you're a man, studies have shown women are much better at mastering the skill of empathy than men for lots of reasons. Part of your brain structure, part of it is cultural things that do that. So it's like learning how to throw a football or learning how to play the piano or learning how to do open heart surgery. Those are all skills to learn. So you may be able to pick up on people's emotions, but how do you reflect that back? How do you share with somebody that you're picking up on what they're feeling? And if you're dealing with, when you're dealing with being an addict, because you said I'm a betrayer, when you've been dealing with those kind of numbing emotions for so long, we suppress how we feel, which is counteractive to being able to be empathic. So I'm picking up on the feelings that people are having. That can be overwhelming in and of itself. I don't know what to do with it. I don't have words to put to it. And so I numb out. And then that's not like that doesn't help me have connection. So any of the attachment wounds can cause that, like loss, neglect, rejection, abandonment, betrayal, and abuse, or a combination of those. And actually, people who who've been abused as kids, they're pretty good. They're really good at picking up what's going on in the room. They have learned how to read people really well. And that's part of what's happened to them. So they're maybe empaths, but they're not empathic, if that makes sense. So they can pick up on what's going on in the room. The room feels dangerous. They can see that little eyebrow moving up. They can see the subtle changes in somebody's body temperature as their face becomes redder. They're picking up, those are all trauma signals that they're picking up on. So they can pick up on that. But how do they say what they're feeling? And how do they say, I bet you're feeling angry. I bet you're really scared right now. Is that what's going on with you? I'm scared. Being able to talk about emotions, none of us do that very well. But that is a skill that we learn. And the good news is you can learn it. You can become emotionally intelligent and learn how to have conversations with others about emotions. And it starts with owning what you're feeling first. In order for me to be able to have empathy for you, I have to know my feelings. And then I will think, like, if you are scared, you look like you're scared. I go into myself and I think, what does fear feel like for me? It feels like my hands are clenched around my heart and it's squeezing it tight and it's cold and icy. And then I'll say, so when you feel fear, do you feel like your hands are like squeezing on your heart and it's cold and icy? Is that what you're feeling? And they may say, no, I mean, I'm scared, but it feels like this. And then they'll describe it. But maybe it's not that I got it wrong. It's me tapping into what does fear like for me and then saying it to you. And then you're like, no, it actually feels like I got this really heavy stuff just sitting on me and it's, well, and I'm like, oh, okay. We're having dialogue about it and there's connection. So that's how empathy works. Empath and empathy connected, but not entirely the same.
Yeah, when I read this, I was like, oh, your world was not safe when you were a child because you had to read the room. Like kids should just be able to be kids. You know, you had to read the room and see if it was safe. And then your job was to make things better. Like it wasn't even just that you could go, okay, this isn't safe and you know, somebody's going to take care of me. This is like, it isn't safe and I have to fix things. I have to be the caretaker for the whole situation. What a burden for you. So I love all of the stuff that Troy was talking about. But and I'm glad you're here because like in active recovery, we learn, you know, that those were real needs and the ability to dissociate from our real needs that you know of course we have maladaptive coping mechanisms we find you know really helpful and useful and honestly for some people they are helpful and useful they're what gets us to be an adult because you know things were so turbulent so tenuous so problematic that you know it is what saved us until it of course turns on us so I'm glad you're here and please you know please know that you know like so one of the books that I and I've shared with a number of people too is Neglect the Silent Abuser and it's not like just neglect that is the horrible child protective services coming it's those kind of things where there wasn't bandwidth in the family for whatever reason you know in order for a child to be safe and so so I suspect as you're doing this work you're going to start unraveling those layers too so but the good news is in recovery, we can heal those wounds. So, okay, the next question. My stepfather was a violent alcoholic. I found out there was no Santa at 7 years old when he didn't come home from an all-night drunk Christmas Eve and Santa was in the trunk of the car. I made sure my children always had good Christmas, but I struggled with Christmas as a result. Last year was the first Christmas post D-Day and second worst Christmas ever. I stopped being a child that day, but love Christmas. Any suggestions on how to regain the childlike spirit of Christmas? And this person says, I'm sure Troy is one of Santa's helpers.
I am actually. Me and Santa are super tight. I help deliver some of the presents for him sometimes. So
there you go.
I love, first of all, thank you for sharing. And my heart hurts with you. There's two thoughts. First is remembering how I was in the 5th grade when I figured out that there wasn't a Santa. Oh, no children.
Oh, yeah. This is for adults only. So,
all right. Apparently some kid at school told me that there wasn't one And I came home in tears, like, they said their brother was Santa. And then my parents proceeded to tell me the whole thing. And then I like, does that mean there's not a tooth fairy too?
Oh, jeez.
I was so disappointed that was the
It's
freaking
the
tooth
whole,
fairy.
my whole world is like
The
ruined.
world's been blown up.
Yeah.
So that was painful. I never had the opportunity to do this to my kids because they were they figured it out long before anything. But what I wanted to do to tell my son was I wanted to make this little spy kit that like, and have the Santa secret in there and say, you now are a Santa's helper because now you know the secret. Your job is to share joy and light and love during the holiday season, and to help create magic. So it's hard when you're feeling depressed and you've had experiences like D-Day or finding your dad drunk. Like those are really traumatic experiences that can really weigh heavily during these seasons of the year. Like these anniversary times of year can really weigh heavily. And we do trauma work around that, but the way that we can reframe it, and your question is, how can I gain the childlike spirit of Christmas, is, well, what does Santa do? He blesses people's lives. He does something to make a magical experience for someone else. So we've done several things like that over the years. We've gone ditching doorbells and made little crafts. And when I was a little kid, we used to do that, and we'd make these little gifts or cookies or whatever, and we'd ring the doorbell, and then we'd run and hide, and they'd come out. And one time this lady came out and she said, thank you, thank you. And then I yelled, you're welcome. And I was so mad. She was not happy with me. But those are some of my most favorite memories, is doing stuff like that. Going to a nursing home, going somewhere where you think, okay, they do a lot of stuff for children. Like you go to every store and there's a Christmas tree for children. So maybe you do that. Maybe you buy gifts for a child that needs something, but who else needs something? Going down to the homeless shelter and helping serve around Christmas time, buying socks, getting underwear, like doing something to try to make somebody's Christmas magical. That is, I think, is how we get the spirit of Christmas back. We try to give rather than receive, and watch the light and joy in somebody else's eyes. I think that's how we do it.
I love that you busted yourself with you're welcome, but yeah, I do, like, for me, service and serving, and the more anonymous the better. Like that is, I mean, some of the things, if you're going to go to the homeless shelter and serve food, you're going to be seen, but a lot of the stuff, like the angel trees, and like there's so many opportunities, and low cost. One year, and I won't have time this year, but like writing little notes and just taking notes around a neighborhood, or to the nursing home, or to the veterans, or whatever, like just making one thing a focus. There's so many places that need help, like, and even if it's giving a few hours of my time, that is a worthwhile thing to do. One of the things, in recovery that I learned, the more I'm out of myself, the more it fills me. It's the craziest thing, but the more, it just helps. So I hope you find the joy. I hope you find joy and peace this year. And I'm so sorry that you're, the violent alcoholic, what a broken person, and his influence on your world. But I hope you are starting to feel that the heart is healing, even if it's slowly, that you're making progress. And his definition does not have to define your world.
I'll just follow
Next,
up with one
go ahead,
last.
please.
So I took my children to Disneyland a couple of weeks ago, first vacation in forever. My daughter is 17. We've tried to go to Disneyland at least once a year. And she's like, Dad, this place is a money suck. And I'm like, yes, honey,
Yes.
it's been a money suck for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
She goes, it feels so fake. I said, I know, but when you were little and Cinderella came in and she just came in and she hugged you, it was the most magical
Mhm.
experience. And to watch the light in your eyes as you did that. And so as I'm reading your comment, like those magical moments. So how can we create those? I wish that I would like to have that for myself. I'm a little old, but how can I create a magical moment for somebody else? What can I do for them? And being creative, that's part of the fun of doing it.
Yes. Yeah. And so, you know, Troy and I both live in Arizona. So one of the things I do is I have I have some Christmas songs on my running playlist. So it's July in Arizona and that song comes on and like that actually is a good memory for me is to to add that to the whole thing. And I swear it cools me off like by 2 degrees if I if I hear that. But like I think part of it is that Christmas doesn't have to just be a day or a season. It's like that serving and giving and doing random things, any time of the year, can be how I transform myself, but also, a day or time too. So here's one. What if you're an avoidant and don't want connection?
um yeah, I'm an avoidant sometimes. And I isolate sometimes. I don't want connection, I need connection. So I may not want it, but I need it. We are wired as human beings for connection, neurologically, biologically, spiritually, socially, emotionally, sexually. We are wired to be connected to each other. And in fact, our world does not work if we're not connected. I think about the simple thought of how does food end up in the grocery store so that I can take it home and take it to my house and eat it. Like a lot of kids don't know how food gets there. I live in a very rural part of the world where there's a lot of farming. 90% of the world's winter vegetables come from where I live, lettuce, broccoli, those kind of things. So I watch how it gets planted. I watch how the workers go out and cut it. I watch how people and I wouldn't have that if I wasn't connected to them. And then the trucks and the trains and everything connects everything to everything. So we are wired for it. But as an avoidant, especially with an attachment style of avoidance, I oftentimes for these people, I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to have you bump up against my wounds because it's painful. I don't want you to know me because I don't trust you. So there's a lot of suspicion and there's a lot of these invisible walls that come up with being avoidant as we try to push people away. And yet we are wired for connection. And so that becomes the dilemma. Are there some people who live their lives as hermits out there, completely isolated from everybody? Yes, there are. And I don't know if they're happy or not. I've never talked to one of them. But we need connection, especially if we are trying to be in recovery, whether as somebody in addiction or whether the partner of somebody. We need connection in order to thrive. And so it's about thriving, not just existing. And connection is a key part of that.
So I'm having a hard time thinking of a baby as being avoidant. So how do those patterns, I mean, like is it something within, or is it like my world isn't safe, so therefore I need to protect myself? Any thoughts on that? I mean, I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so if you are familiar with the still face experiment, can't remember his name all of a sudden. They do this still face experiment. If you YouTube it, you'll find tons of examples. What they do is they bring a baby, probably a year to 18 months old, still not verbal, most of them. And they bring a parent into the room, and then the parent plays with the baby, interacts, and they have a camera like on the baby so you can watch them. And then the parent will turn around and then turn back around and have a blank face, no reaction, nothing. And within seconds, the baby figures out something's not right. And so the baby will then do everything in its power to try and get the parent to respond, whether that's the first they like point and move around, and then as there's no reaction, they become distressed, and then they begin to cry, and then they really start to like lose it as they go away, as they can't get the connection they need from their parent. It's a horrible thing to watch. But we've learned
it hurts my heart to think about this, you
yeah.
know, so.
So they are trying, and then some of the babies, they get so mad that they will like turn away. And that's their way of like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Like, this is so overstimulating for me that I don't want to look at it. And you'll see the kids who are a little older, and when they're mad, they like cover their face and those kind of things because they're overwhelmed and they don't have the vocabulary to be able to express how they're feeling. So that's kind of how we start to learn to be avoidant, or become very clingy, which is the other side of the attachment style, where we're like, don't leave me. Like, I need you because I'm so afraid you're going to pull away that I'm going to cling to you, or I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know what to do with it. And so I turn away to avoid the stimulus that comes with that. So we do that, even that's how we learn it as we're growing up. And then as we become adults, being vulnerable is scary. Being secure, trusting other people, knowing that they're going to stick around, knowing that you can trust yourself with them is tenuous for all of us because we're all human. And so there's people who are avoidant because they're like, I need connection, but I don't want connection. And so it becomes a dilemma.
So what I hear you saying though is if this is learned, then we can practice, not to unlearn, but we can practice to do things differently. And yes, if our natural style is to, you know, pull our turtle shell over us and, you know, avoid things, we can go, that isn't what I really need. And I'm going to take this really scary risk and connect.
Yeah. Scary. Absolutely scary.
Yeah. Yeah. And we won't be successful all the time. And somebody's going to, you know, singe our fingers and we're going to go, oops. But we have to try. Well, if we want to grow, we need to try again.
Yeah. Yeah. If you need, I would propose we all need connection. You have the ability to say what that connection is going to look like for you, but we all need connection. We may not want it sometimes, and I'm the first to admit sometimes I isolate, and that's not healthy. But sometimes I'm so overwhelmed that I just gotta go take a time out for a little while.
But you take it out for a little while. You don't go, yeah, I'm checking out, you know, and that's different. So to me, that's doing self-care versus completely disconnecting. I get troubled when, you know, when I start asking people, what are you doing for your recovery? Because like I'm trying to get a gauge of like what resources will be helpful for them at this point in their journey. And they're doing meditation, they're reading, they're doing all of, I'm listening to podcasts, all good stuff. But there's zero connection, zero accountability, you know, too, but there's zero connection in all of that. And I just don't perceive that that is going to ultimately be successful and give them the level of recovery, you know, that is useful really. And you know, I mean, this is tough stuff. You know, you want the, you know, the best team you can have, and it takes a team, bless you, you know, versus, I mean, like I said, I do my meditation, I do all of those things, but I also, you know, go to meetings. I'm connected with a lot of people. So, which, you know, it is a shift. So, okay, next question. So thank you again. This is from the person we started out. I'm deeply involved with SA and another men's organization. After going through men's rites of passage is what I discovered. I wasn't in real recovery and learned to be honest with myself. The organization was created based on Bill W.'s philosophies on how to address addictions. They recognize the need for support. And since the rites of passage, I've had tremendous support at all times. That's great. Pain cannot be entered and moved through in solitude. I agree with that. So
Heartedly, yeah. The more that I've thought about that, like individuals who cut themselves, they're not addicted to the cutting. It's their way of managing their pain. They have control over when they're going to be hurt, how deeply they're going to be hurt. So it's about control for them more than it is about feeling the pain. For some who deal with cutting behaviors, that's the only time that they feel safe enough to actually feel. So pain is woven into it, but it's more about, I don't feel like I have any control in my life other than here. So I feel relief after I've cut myself, which sounds interesting. Like other people who don't understand that behavior would think that's strange, but they feel relief because they have some control over themselves. So even that, I would say they're not necessarily addicted to the pain. They're addicted to being able to have a say over when they experience the pain. So, but I love your thought. Pain cannot be entered and moved through in solitude. I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that. And if you try to, it's going to be really, really lonely.
and I appreciate too that you say moved through, because it's we all want to get to the other side. I want it to be over with, and so it's like I want to speed bump right over that and poof, and so I appreciate that you use the language of moved through, and that's what all of this stuff is. The trauma work, you're moving through it. Grief work, you're moving through it. So, and sometimes there can be stuck points, so getting the help to get unstuck at those problem areas is important. But it's also, I get a lot of calls of like, I want to be over this. Well, we all want to be over this, but that's just not how this goes. And it is, I think people find as they're doing this work that they're like, the trauma is still there and they're still, but it isn't as painful. There isn't the body reactions. You're making progress, but it doesn't all magically go away. You don't get amnesia on the trauma, as a result of doing this work.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Other questions, comments for Troy? We've got some time left.
Somebody asked me yesterday what my favorite self-care strategies are. I don't do it as much as I need to, but I love meditating. I love being still for 20 minutes and just using my mantra and getting still with the world. When I do that, I feel so much more grounded. I feel more alert and more alive, more able to function. The other thing I was talking with the guy about is the more that I've learned how to be kind to myself, the kinder I've become with other people. I've been able to be more patient, less judgmental of others when I've learned how to not be so enveloped in my own shame. That's been nice. I was really judgmental back in the day. So it's been really good.
So tell me about your meditation. If you're doing 20 minutes of meditation, what does that look like for you? I mean, you say your mantra, but what does that look like for you?
So I sit in a comfortable place, whether I have a meditation chair or I have like a meditation cushion, either one. And then my mantra is just a word that means, I don't actually know what it means. The sounds really. And I just say it over and over in the pace that I feel like in my mind. And I'm breathing in through my nose, out through my mouth. and then I listen. Okay, so some people would not like this part because you're supposed to not have any music, but I have music that's timed for about 20 minutes so that I know that when the music's over, I can get up and leave. Because otherwise, what ends up happening is I'm like, has it been 20 minutes yet? Like I got things to do. Like I got and so that either having a bell or something lets me know that it's time to finish. I can then stay channeled into my meditation and not have to worry about the rest of it. And when my mind wanders, which it always does, like a lot of people, when they think about meditation, they think, well, you're not supposed to have any thoughts. Well, no, you do. The whole point is that you bring it back to whatever you're focusing on, whether it's a mantra or you're breathing or whatever it is. You just bring it back. And then every time you do that, it strengthens your prefrontal cortex. So I might be sitting there and think, okay, I got these notes to do. What am I going to have for lunch today? Like, no, bring it back. And I just do that. And it's become easier and easier. And so now I'm just able to like, just kind of be there. And then I'm done and I feel better.
So how often are you like, and this isn't trying to be accountable, like how often are you able to take the time or make the time? How often do you prioritize that for yourself?
That's it.
There's 3 different ways of asking the question.
So. I used to do it every morning, and then things changed at home, like kids' school schedules, everything. I have to do it when there's nobody around. Like I can't handle noise. Like I get distracted. So I've actually booked time on my calendar at work now so that I can do it. And I have to tell myself, no, you book this so you could do meditation, not so that you could do something else. So I have it booked every day of the week, 5 days a week, at least to do 20 minutes of meditation. So I just have to tell myself like, no, like don't make that phone call, don't send that email, do your freaking meditation for a minute, buddy.
Yeah, well, and I love that you have the accountability and that you prioritize it. You put it on your calendar, and and that's what anything new that I'm trying to do, I have to do that because otherwise, there's 4,000 other things that, become a priority over that. So, what I've found is I have less bandwidth right now. And I noticed that my self-care, other than running, but there's more behind that too. But other than that, all the other things that I do that are actually really good self-care, have gone away. And I'm going like, I'm just, so I'm trying to figure out how do I put that in without it being, okay, I'm doing self-care, but all I'm thinking about is the 4,000 other things that I have to do. So it's just challenging. And I'm trying to just give myself a little bit of space right now and go, this will return. I'm still doing I'm still doing my daily meditations. I'm still doing these things, but that's, kind of it. So yeah, it's challenging. But when you first said, 20 minutes of meditation, I was like, I mean, like I really, suck at sitting still for 20 minutes. Like you guys don't know how hard webinars are where I have to sit still for an hour. Like it's, it is, it's hard. And so I was just like, oh God, but I was like, no, I know that is, meaningful things. There's so much research on how good it would be. And I tried, like I did a guided meditation for a while and I was like I committed to it for 30 days and it got to be a thing I had to do. There, like I never got the hang of that particular, but there's other things. So, but I love that you're committed to it. So, okay, my essay is present and wants to know, doing the inner child work, wants to know how long before the inner child integration happens and he doesn't revert to his inner child. He is reading John Bradshaw. John Bradshaw stuff is fantastic. Homecoming, and has yours and Eddie's books as well. So what are your thoughts on that, Troy?
Okay, so I don't know if there's a time frame of how long it integrates. It's almost like recognizing that little boy is there, and not letting. So I talk about the shame shadows who are trying to protect that little boy. So I'll give you an example. I'm working on preparing for this Finding Peace for Retreat for Professionals, and I was looking for some help. And I reached out to a buddy who has always said that he wants to help and he's very eager about it. And he says to me, well, I've been really busy. I've been working on stuff. I've been away every weekend and I just can't do it. And immediately, like within seconds, my rejection and abandonment wound got hit immediately. And I didn't do it, but my response was to like flip him off and say, screw you. Like totally little boy behavior, right? I'm taking my ball and going home, right? So immediately I'm like, ooh, that was a rejection. That was a wound right there. And I'm noticing this reaction. It was hot. So what did I do? I called up another buddy and said, okay, like, here's what's going on, because I know you can't help and I'm not having the same reaction with you, but I'm totally having it with this dude over here. What's going on? And so we worked through it and we're like, okay, those are my wounds and my hopes and wanting to connect with him were all part of that. And my little boy was disappointed. My adult self was like, okay, look, do not be sending that email. Do not be doing that. Breathe for a little bit. And then I talked through it, and then I was able to have empathy for him. And I totally know what it feels like to be busy every freaking weekend and to not have any time for family. And I get it. And it helped me respond different. And then I was able to handle a much different way. So it took me a while, but once I be able to have vocabulary to talk, that helped, right? So I'm able to say, wow, and noticing. I noticed how fast I became angry just within seconds. Ooh, noticing that. What's going on? Well, my core belief was people don't show up when I need them. Okay, is that true? No, but that's what got activated in that moment. That little boy absolutely has that core belief that people don't show up when he needs them. And I was angry and I had a wound. So 3 things going on. As an adult, what can I do to take care of that? And that's the work of recovery. And so I called somebody else, talked to them about it, but work through it. And then I may or may, I mean, if he ever watches this, he'll figure out who I'm talking about. I may or may not ever even talk to him about that because I'm at peace with it now.
Mhm.
But that is how it works, is noticing. And then instead of letting the shame hijack you and immediately going into those automatic like knee-jerk reactions of anger or whatever, breathing for a second and becoming curious and saying, okay, what's going on? What does my little boy need? As an adult, how can I take care of that? That's a process that we will probably be doing for the rest of our lives. So integrating, I don't know if there's a timeline for that, but I do know being mindful of that expedites the process and we become a more and more rational and connected as we learn how to do that.
First of all, your friend will be, if he watches this, will be really grateful that you didn't send the nasty email and all of that you went and made that phone call, that you used your adult brain to, get the help. But yeah, I mean, like, I wish we got all integrated and then we were all Zen and we were all adults and showed up, perfectly. But no, I mean, like I said, my abandonment wound massively got poked this week, and and so, but the tools, exactly like you're talking. So I was able, like you, to recognize and then do something different rather than just, continue making chaos. So I love that he's, reading John Bradshaw's. I hope he is talking about it with other people too, so he's able to help make those connections. Because as much as I love books, it's still, there's something different. Like when Troy was talking about, what is fear? Well, for fear, fear for me is, like this. Well, if my reaction is different, there's different insights and there's different layers and levels. And so working through all of those things in community, really helps us put those pieces together and gives us the language and gives us the tool and gives us practice for, showing up in an adult way too. So, but I appreciate that he's looking at all of those things. So
Awesome.
any other thoughts or questions? I think we're almost out of time, but we got time for one more. And otherwise, watch the schedule for this next month. With Christmas and New Year's on the weekend, most things won't be interrupted, but there will be a few shifts and changes. So check that all out. And we've got, a full lineup and including the work groups again, starting in January. So check those all out. So, okay, well, without further ado, then I'm going to say thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have great holidays. I'll see you. I can't remember when the 4th is. It's probably between the holidays. I'll look, but when the 4th week is. So we'll be in touch. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Later. Bye.